Hey, Aloha Friday again. Welcome to Stan the Energy Man. I'm Stan Osterman from the Hawaii Center for Advanced Transportation Technologies, State of Hawaii DBED. And we're here with a special guest today that I wore my special aviator shirt just for. We've got Mr. Dave Rolf from the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, who, little known fact, he used to fly airplanes a long time ago when he was young and slim, like I used to be young and slim, and zooped around the sky pulling G's and doing all kind of fun stuff. So another little known fact is he's a poet and an artist, and you know, people just don't get that from him because he's kind of big and gruff and rough and tumble, but he's a very sensitive kind of guy. So we're going to talk about sensitive things today, like hydrogen vehicles and the future of transportation in Hawaii. And we're going to take a little bit different slant. You know, we like to talk the technical stuff, and Dave's pretty good with the technical stuff, but something that people don't think about much, or really I don't think appreciate much, is that you don't have any of these great technologies or great things developed without a business piece attached to it, and being able to project in the future, and what's your market, and what's your return on investment, and how are you going to do this stuff. So it's not just the technical, can we do it, but to make it all come together at the right time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But here we got Dave Rolf, Mr. Dave Rolf from the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, and thanks so much for being here, Dave. I mean, we've been great friends since I started working at HCAT, and it's always a pleasure to work with you. And we've had an exciting week this week. We've done some fun stuff. The State Energy Office rolled out their transportation, you know, the end of their charrettes basically, and they're really trying to get some meat on the bones and get their working groups going in the different areas. So we were there in that meeting. And then yesterday, Mitch Ewan from H&EI had some great training in hydrogen station fire codes stuff. So we're smarter than the average bear. And my favorite part of yesterday was Thor. Boy. And what we got to do afterwards. Dave and I got to go and look and touch the Mirai. Really look at it and up close, and how much room's in the trunk and what's under the hood. And I was blown away. I think we were all like kids in a candy store looking at this Mirai with Thor out there, and he's answering questions, and I'm asking him where he's getting his hydrogen, and it was just a thing of beauty. So we've had a busy week, but Dave, you've kind of been a champion for a lot of things hydrogen and renewable energy and plug-in vehicles, and you take everything from the marketing side and the promotion side with the Auto Dealers Association and the Hawaii Auto Show and things like that. Tell us a little bit about, you know, how you kind of got into that lane after being in the military and flying airplanes, and you're, you know, doing public relations and getting into vehicles now and being an Auto Dealer Association. What got you going in this stuff?
Well, years ago in 1999, I looked at a group of people that I wanted to ride with, and I looked at the auto dealers, and they were doing a lot of good things, I thought. I own an ad agency, I still own an ad agency, and I decided to hang my spurs with them because we were trying to work on seeing if we could improve public education. And so we worked on that together. And I started working with them in their trade association, and they asked me to do some work with that. And it became such a joy to look at the future and how the auto dealers were looking at it. Such a good set of people to work with. And so that's how I got connected with them back 16 years ago.
And you did some of well, I like to talk about Tom Quinn's time, and you know Tom Quinn from before, and some of the cool things he did when we really started getting into the clean energy initiative and clean transportation. So you kind of had an honor with some of the first hydrogen vehicles that came on board.
Yeah, sure.
That tell us a little bit about that.
That was tons of fun. In fact, I got to drive the first hydrogen vehicle off the boat, basically. Well, it came off the ship mats, and it was in there in the parking lot. They needed somebody to take it over to J&N Chevrolet back in 2010. So I was a test pilot back in the old days. I guess they trusted me enough to fly that one from at least down with where the ship was down to J&N Chevrolet. So I did get to drive the first hydrogen car. So I guess, to operate in Hawaii, the one that'll you know, be the first to do that. Now, of course, we have Mirai, and what a thrill it was. Thor Toma, who you mentioned from Servco, sent us a video, and I had the joy this morning of playing that video, that 3-minute thing that's on YouTube, that Back to the Future thing that has Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. And of course, now it's a modern day version of a guy from the Mirai, from Toyota, coming up and saying, I want to show you how we've come back to the future. And they show how garbage is used to create hydrogen, and then it creates it just like they used garbage, or they actually in the DeLorean back in that 1985 movie.
Yeah, that was, I saw that, I think it actually came out on the 21st of October, and it didn't connect with me, but obviously all the movies junkies got it, that 21 October 2015 was the day that they came to in the movie.
Right.
And so the discussion between the two of them is, let's check and see how much actually came true from, and really happened in 2015 compared to when we made the movie. And then, of course, they roll in the guy making hydrogen out of junk.
Well, so how would you like to be the guy that helped take the hydrogen car over to the dealership back 5 years ago, and be a guy that was with a trade association of a bunch of auto dealers that are working on trying to take us in the future on this Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, and to have to sit down and kind of draw out the future on a graph and see when the car is going to get here and when it'll be marketed? Well, I had the privilege of sitting down and taking out a sheet of paper and drawing out the car sales over the next 20 years and when the first hydrogen car was going to land here. And I could have put down March 14th. I could have put down Pi Day, basically, is when it became Einstein's Pi Day 31415. That's when it appeared at the auto show.
Right.
And lo and behold, it came true. In other words, just like the Back to the Future movie, it came true on this 2015 time period that the hydrogen car that can run off the garbage, if you will, that creates hydrogen, all came about. And it's such a joy to be part of a group of folks who can look into the future, put things on paper, see how it all comes together, and see what joy it gives people when you can launch things like that.
That's true. It's really neat to make things go from paper to reality. One of the things that I do notice, though, when I go to a lot of the meetings that we attend with especially with the battery or plug-in vehicles, and we even saw some of it yesterday, is we have this either or thing, either batteries or hydrogen, either plug-in electrics or hydrogen fuel cells.
Macs or PCs, beta VHS.
And it drives me crazy because people don't get it that you can do both. Well, you sit in a really peculiar or precarious place because you represent everybody. Every company, every dealer, every brand, and all of them have plug-in electric vehicles. A lot of them have hydrogen fuel cells now and hydrogen fuel cells projected in the future. And you're in that spot. Do you get that much from the dealers? What kind of thing do you get from the dealers? Where do they say, oh, well, we really like the battery plug-in, or we all want to go this way or that? I mean, are they kind of agnostic and go, whatever is the business thing, then we'll go that way? What kind of feel do you get from them?
The dealers are an amazing group. I mean, there's 30 of them that own 70 dealerships here in the islands. And you know their names. A lot of them are on the dealerships, of course. But they're willing to sit down and look at what is the greater picture, not particularly in their own interest when they're on their when they wear their trade association hat. So a number of years ago, in 2008, Linda Lingle, from the governor's podium there in her office, looked at me and said, "You're not going to like this, Dave." And I said, "I'm holding a press conference here to tell you that we're going to mandate that your dealers carry electric cars." And she didn't mention, but there was going to be a $1,000 fine for any that weren't included in the portfolio and a $5,000 fine on the manufacturer. And Senator Noy was there. And I said afterwards, as the governor was walking out, and to the senator, I said, we wouldn't like to be mandated that because we don't know when the cars will arrive, and it doesn't make sense to fine you when you can't even get one of those cars out of our control. I will tell you this, though, the dealers want to help you accomplish this, Senator. I said to Senator Noy and Governor. And it's a Navy term. And I said, I'm empowered to say aye, aye, which means I understand, I will make it so. And so on behalf of the trade association, we all said together that we would work toward making it so, this clean energy initiative of trying to move cars that operate on petroleum, at least 40% of them to operate on renewable fuel, and to reduce the petroleum amount in the others to lean burn, if you will, from our flying days, to lean burn, the gasoline, so that you'd reduce the oil consumption by 70%. And so I created this chart as to how that could be done, and I knew what the auto sales would be. I knew how many electric cars and hydrogen cars had to come online. I knew the sources of all that. We had more sources in Hawaii than any place on the planet Earth. And I just looked around and said, my goodness, if it could come from sun and wave and geothermal and ocean thermal, could we not do this big Back to the Future thing over this period of the Clean Energy Initiative? And the auto dealers all said, how can we help do that? And they were willing to bring in electric cars, even though there's profitability is not really found in that car. And a lot were willing to invest in things for the future without an immediate payback, just on behalf of the greater good of everyone.
So would it be fair to say that most of the dealers are kind of technology agnostic? They just want to do what's right, what's good, what they think they can market? Because, I mean, a lot of people think that these companies they're just focused on making money and forcing a product on the public to make money in that venue. But in reality, it's the other way around. If nobody will buy it, they don't want it. So they want to bring in things that the public wants. And if the government says this is a good idea and the population embraces it, like plug-in vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, they don't care what technology it is. They just want to make the customer sales. They want to sell that product. And if there's a demand for it, they'll bring it in.
Well, you put it, you hit the nail right on the head, is that the dealer's willing to sell anything and everything that the public wants to have. And of course, they're happy to do that. They hope their manufacturers can get those online in time and bring them to market as soon as possible. But the whole bring to market concept is really what I'm starting to understand. I thought you could kind of do this with public policy, could kind of force some things to happen, but I went along with that for a period of time, but realized that really public policy doesn't really shape it as much as the marketplace does. And so even the legislators would ask me, how does the hydrogen car make a profit? And frankly, at this point, that isn't very clear. And so they're not very willing to kind of help in an area that has no outcome to it or can see how it makes a profit. I think many of the companies now see that the hydrogen is the car of the future. No one has really found a clear path to profitability on it. They're sort of working like in the early development stages, but everybody has that hope or belief that that will come about. And the key thing is finding hydrogen at an affordable rate. That's the bottom line. They've got the car, and they've got it at an affordable price, and it'll actually become more affordable the next 5 years. The car started out at $100,000 in 2010, the hydrogen car, and they said it would go half of that in 5 years, and I think the Mirai sells in the 57,000. So they were exactly right about that, and they said it would likely half again in the next 5 years. So when you get these magnificent cars of the future being sold at very reasonable prices that can go 300 miles on a charge of hydrogen, then the question just becomes, where do you get the hydrogen and is it affordable? That's just what it's down to right now.
Yeah, so we're coming up on a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about projecting in the future, because I had the opportunity to talk to your auto dealers one time, and I gave them the Wayne Gretzky quote,
Yeah,
and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. How do you get there? So we'll be back in 60 seconds or so and talk more to Dave Rolf.
Hi, my name's Cindy Matsuki, and I host the show High Growth with HTDC on Think Tech Hawaii. This is the show where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there's so many things going on in Hawaii and more people should know about them. So this is the program that you can come and find out about all the things happening in Hawaii. And this show also airs on Olelo 54 along with Think Tech Hawaii. And it broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. So don't forget, check out the show Tuesday, 3 p.m. every other week. High Growth with HTDC. Thanks.
Hey, welcome back to my lunch hour. Stan the Energy Man here with Dave Rolf from the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. And we just left off at the break there talking about, what it takes to get something to market. And something I've really kind of focused in on at HCAT is we need to do what we did in the old aerial gunnery thing. You don't sit there and aim where the airplane is to shoot at it when you're trying to shoot them down. You have to do the duck hunting thing. You have to lead them. You have to put your pipper out there in front of him. You have to put a stream of bullets out there to be where he's going to be. And that's the whole Wayne Gretzky thing. The Wayne Gretzky quote was, "How come you're the greatest hockey player known?" And he goes, "Because I skate where the puck's going to be. I don't skate where the puck is. I don't skate where the guy is. I skate where it's going to be." So explain to us, we have a graph coming up we can throw on the screen for the viewers. And explain this graph to us and how that helps us predict where we're going to be and where all the pieces and parts, that infrastructure, the dealers, the banks, the lenders, all the people that want to buy these vehicles, it all comes together at certain points. And if you look at this stuff, you can kind of see that. So if we can have that graph there, and you can talk a little bit about your graph.
Sure, well, you're right. My grandpa used to say to hit a duck in flight, you shoot ahead of the duck. So this is shooting ahead of the duck because we planned out 20 years, we looked out 20 years in advance. I saw a quote today about the future. I just have to share that with you. It says, "This is where the metaphysical property of the future And the concept of the variable dynamics converge. And so you have all these multivariable dynamics converging, but you can see them because you have the ability to plan what car sales are going to be in the future by looking at what they were in the past. And in the past 2 decades, that's the Golden Gate Bridge phenomenon. And it's almost like the rising tide and falling tide, but it goes up and it goes down. It goes up and goes down. It did that the 2 decades before that also. So we could easily project how auto sales are going to go over the next 20 years. Well, lo and behold, I did this in 2008, and it has hit almost exactly as the projections as I thought they would. What was really surprising is that I was able to accurately project how many electric cars would come online and how many would be sold very many years in advance. And I was able just to call all the car companies, and I sat down and I looked at what I thought would be the adoption rate. I said there would be about 300 of those cars sold in 2011. There were 311 of them sold, so I missed it by 11. Now, this is years and years and years in advance. But many years in advance, I said in the year 2015, the year we're sitting in right now, that the first hydrogen car would come here, and it would be at the auto show, and it would be on display. I didn't know that it would be the Mirai, which means that the future. I actually thought that General Motors was going to probably have that. They were out in the lead on
they
that.
were leading on a lot of stuff.
And so I got to drive that car in 2010, so I thought that, it would be on the market in 2015. We also thought there would be all these hydrogen fueling stations in 2015, and there was a big thing down at the Aloha Tower where a big announcement from General Motors and that there was going to be this big coalition of everybody working together. And that just didn't happen, but lo and behold, Toyota, and of course Hyundai has always come out with a hydrogen car also, and Honda's got one and coming, and then almost all the major manufacturers are looking at it at some point. But lo and behold, there on the chart, there's this little red scratch mark. That was the electric car, and there it is. It was sitting right there at the auto show, and we got to see it yesterday.
The hydrogen fuel cell car, yeah.
The hydrogen fuel cell car, as you point out, the hydrogen fuel cell electric car, because it is all that. And it was such a joy to see that, and it felt so back to the future to have driven one back to 10, and then now here's in 2015. It's right on. It's on the ground here in Hawaii. No fueling stations yet, but it's right here. I think Toyota, the Servco people, will certainly put up a fueling station soon if they don't already have one. They may even have one.
So the blue graph, or the dark blue was the electric cars coming on board. The red graph, red part of the graph is the fuel cell projected on board and projected, and then the light blue is total sales overall by tens of thousands, or it's listed in thousands on the left side, and it's based on the turnover of vehicles that you historically know and how long people keep them and turn them over. And some people keep them 2 years, some people keep them 10 years. You got all that figured in there.
They go out of service at about 20 years. So actually we sell about 50,000 new cars a year. And over a 20-year period, that's 1 million cars. It's really easy to kind of figure out Hawaii. It's the perfect petri dish. And then you had to kind of figure, people say, oh, you're going to have all these cars on the road. But the reality is about 50,000 cars go off the road too into the crushers. In other words, as they go out of service. So all these new cars are coming aboard with tremendous gas mileage and unbelievable connectivity and all these wonderful things with cameras in them and everything.
And Bluetooth.
And amazing things. You go to the auto show sometime, 350 examples of automotive art down there loaded with technology. And cameras and things that automatic brake and automatic park. It just goes on and on and on. So these beautiful, wonderful new cars are coming on board, and this wonderful new technology and power plant is coming on board, and power, so that you have hydrogen propelling some and you have electricity propelling others too. So we call it run on the sun for the electricity folks.
I make the point to the viewers a lot of times that people underestimate Hawaii's impact on the world. I mean, they know we're a tourist destination. They know we have a lot of military here, but they really don't think about sometimes the things that have started in Hawaii and become huge, like surfing, like some of the words we use in the computer world, surfing the net, wiki, Wikipedia. All those things, big kahuna, it all comes from Hawaii. But you're in the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, but how would you rate the impact that we have on the national level market? Because people look at the work that you do and our dealers do and the focus that they pay and the kind of market we are, that they say, they kind of follow us in a lot of cases.
In Hawaii, the 30 auto dealers out of the 17,000 auto dealers in America have been disproportionately influential because of Senator Inouye. He was the head of Commerce Committee and Energy. And so when we went to talk to him about the corporate average fuel economy standards, the CAFE standards, and we said, if you're planning on combining the car and trucks, It's too early to do that because the truck has to pull things and haul things. It has attributes that you can't just say it's just like a car, like a passenger thing. So
Right.
we ask you to separate cars and trucks. So a Ford dealer went with me, Joe Hanley, and I sat down with Senator Inouye, and he turned to his staff behind him and kind of said, make it so. And so they separated cars and trucks in the CAFE standards,
In the national CAFE
standards,
standards.
based on a trip made by two people from Hawaii to Washington, D.C. to explain the American manufacturers in particular need that 5 years to develop the aluminum truck, the Ford F-150, to develop the EVs and to develop the hydrogen car and all these things. That 5 years will allow people to kind of catch up, allow the manufacturers to catch up so that we can hit this chart. And that was Hawaii that did all that. And I just smile when I think about the fact that a little group of 30 dealers could sit down with the greater good of everyone in mind, send two emissaries to Washington to ask a very critical senator, but one who's involved in a lot of things, to make that change. And it was wonderful how it all came about. So,
And I think, you know, little wins for me are actually huge in my mind. And one of the ones about yesterday's visit with Thor and the Mirai on land is people don't realize that we're not a ZEV state. California is a zero emission vehicle state, along with how many others?
about 11.
11 other states. I saw an article a couple weeks ago that said all the rest of the ZEV states besides California are upset at Hawaii because we're getting hydrogen fuel cell vehicles here before they are. And it's only California and Hawaii that have the Mirai right now, and California has the Hyundai. So our little state is again in front and leading and out ahead. And I really want to emphasize that Hawaii may not be big number-wise or population-wise, but a lot of things that start here because of our geography and our demographics and our culture, we can do it. We can accelerate out. Our hydrogen proliferation for infrastructure is nowhere near as complicated as California's. Nowhere near. We could take off and accelerate past California in a year, in a heartbeat. And we probably need to do that. And that's the kind of stuff I love working with you on. So as we move forward, what are some of the things that you are really looking forward to, kind of as you're looking at your graph and your stuff, toward in the future, kind of how do you envision things happening to bring hydrogen on board and get to that leading position where you're aimed out here and the duck's coming and you're going to hit it?
Well, this is the classic shoot ahead of the duck, but here's a moment that I would love to see happen. I don't know if it can. The President of the United States from Hawaii invited the rest of the world to come here for the World Conservation Congress in 2016. And they're going to be in this glorious glass house called the Hawaii Convention Center. It's like the Emerald City. And imagine if everyone gathered there and he could explain how Hawaii had moved forward on the hydrogen car, hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle. And that had kind of helped everyone embrace it more rapidly. It'd be an absolutely wonderful story to tell for America. This is the first time that we've held the World Conservation Congress in the United States. It'll be here in Hawaii. It'll be in our own convention center next year in 2016. That's the very same place we're holding the auto show, with that wonderful glass, beautiful convention center. So the Mirai will be there. And, all around it grows up this glorious glass city, too. You've seen all the wonderful high rises that are going up in Honolulu, all with a view of Diamond Head. So I kind of envisioned that the president could explain to everybody that Hawaii is at the forefront of adoption of electric and hydrogen cars and leaning out its gasoline cars so that we could kind of help the world transition to this whole thing. That'd be a wonderful vision if that could come about.
That'd be a great target to shoot for. I know that I personally will be trying to get to a point where we can showcase hydrogen at that point in September of 2016.
2016.
So we have a little under a year to
Would we have
get
fueling
ready.
stations then? That's the whole thing. I mean, the car is here now. It's on the ground. But we just, I'm hoping perhaps that other manufacturers, not just Toyota, maybe Hyundai and perhaps a Honda, would also start to embrace the technology and then would put in their own fueling stations, and then each of those vehicles could share each other's fueling stations, and that it could start moving forward. And then Hawaii would play its key role that I think it has been asked to play. You know, you go back to the first hydrogen fund created in the US Congress was by Spark Matsunaga in the 70s.
Yeah, that's true.
He created the Peace Institute, he created the Poet Laureate, something I'm fascinated by with the poetry background I have, and the Hydrogen Fund. So it's all, Hawaii's got it in the DNA.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was Spark Matsunaga until maybe 6 or 8 months ago. I was actually with the Chamber of Commerce in DC on one of their events, and one of the folks that lives in DC now worked on Matsunaga's staff and actually told me about that.
Really?
And because he had worked on that staff, he still lives in DC, and he's part of the Hawaiiana Club that's in DC area. And I was like, there's another spot where Hawaii was first on the map.
First on the map, and they've named the fund after him in 1999. But so with that legacy, I do believe that we have an obligation to carry that forward to see if we can make it work.
Yeah.
And you have some good people trying very hard to do it. I sure, hats off to the Servco people, to Thor, and all those folks. Hats off to Hawaii and the DBED folks and everybody who's been working on this. I love the fact the Senate has now combined transportation and energy into one committee, Senator Lorena Noy's committee. So that's where it belongs. Transportation and energy are one together. I've said America understands two things for sure: cars and pizzas. And if you want to change America to any type of new kind of energy, you have to do it in terms of a car or perhaps a pizza. And that's why we give away free pizzas at the auto show for taking a test drive. So we're going to ask people to go, let's ride this year at the auto show. We're coming up next year in 2016. And hopefully they can get out and try the electric car and some of these other new technology things and get a free pizza.
Well, great. Well, we're going to take another quick break here and be back in a few seconds to talk about the future.
Hi, I'm your host on Think Tech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, Think Tech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Hey, welcome back to my lunch hour, and we're here with Dave Rolf from the Hawaii Auto Dealers Association, and we're talking about bringing the future to Hawaii and leading the future for the nation, and I'm still convinced that we can do it. So Dave focuses on auto dealers, and he's really, and when I say focused, I mean focused. This is one focused individual. He's like looking at the stuff, and he's trying to make the vehicles come at the same time he sees infrastructure coming, and he works that. He works with the large capital, folks that, and convincing them when the right timing happens. But there's a lot of other moving pieces going on in the state of Hawaii, and I'm part of that. And I'm trying to get hydrogen infrastructure going. And so we attend a lot of the same meetings. I invited you to be on our working group because I tried to make a working group that not only had technical people, but had business people. I have some high finance people. I have some state DOT representation there right at the table from that sector. And then from the non-for-profit sector with Paul Pontio from the Big Island and Blue Planet. So we've got, in my mind, when I try and put things together, I'm not the brain of any of this stuff, but I know that if I get a bunch of smart people around me and they're as focused and energized as I am, that we're all going to come together and come up with some great solutions and synergies. So some of the things that we work on in these groups besides automobiles is we're working in agriculture, we're working with high finance in the energy side, we're working with non-for-profits and Blue Planet and actually seeing things happen. And it's not always that the state has to do it, and it's not always that the state has to put a bunch of money into it or the feds do, although we talk to Department of Energy and everyone else. But I like to drive this stuff from the business side. And that's why your part is important and the ag piece is important, because if it doesn't work from the plain supply and demand formula, if there's no market, we're wasting our time putting federal or state money into it. We need to make sure that there's a business case out there for everything, and we need to get there in a multiple pronged attack. So we've got people on the ag side that are looking at commercial off-the-shelf hydrogen tractors. And I'm happy to say that one of the members on our group is working in Kunia, has already ended his own hydrogen production, and is already pulling on his own hydrogen fuel cells and doing stuff with power generation. We're talking to the state departments, transportation and DBED, about using photovoltaics to turn into hydrogen to support fleet vehicles in the state vehicle fleet. And we're working with the city and county and trying to help. We're actually trying to do a conversion to one of their garbage trucks into a hydrogen fuel cell garbage truck. And how does the state support that with maybe methane reforming of their methane they get off of the waste, the landfills or the sewer treatment plants, and turn that into hydrogen so they can put that in vehicles. I just talked to a young man today from University of Hawaii who does some innovative research in not steam reformation, but a kind of a plasma reformation that gets you the hydrogen cheaper than steam reformation, which, as you know, is the cheapest way you do it right now, and taking our natural gas. And there's so many moving pieces, and most people don't get to see that. But you and I get to see that because we focus on it. So I thank you for all the vehicle stuff you do, but how do you look at the rest of those pieces? What other stuff maybe that I'm not seeing? Is there any other things that we could be bringing into this this tidal wave to get hydrogen infrastructure going? Is there something else that we could be doing from a businessman standpoint or a marketing standpoint?
I do believe the car is key to the whole thing long term. In the short term, it may be that we'll have to have forklifts that are using that hydrogen first, and perhaps some industrial tractor and things like that. And I think government can play a huge role in bringing some of its fleet so that it could use some hydrogen fueling
Kind of
stations.
set the example.
Right. You bring the hydrogen car here and it can go 300 miles, but it stops if you don't have a fueling station. So you have to have enough of those to get everybody have a comfort level. In the end, it's surprising because almost all of us have a car. There are about 1 million cars on the roadways in Hawaii, and there are about 1 million adults here. So that adds to the freedom of mobility that we cherish as Americans. It's a wonderful thing to be able to take the family and go to the beach or go to where you want, when you want to go. So the car is going to be part of our future. There's no question about it. Hawaii will go more vertical with regard to its glass city and a lot of those big, beautiful things they have with a view of Diamond Head. The hydrogen car and electric car will play a big, big role there. So as the car comes on board, all those other things can grow out from where the car is starting to use these fueling stations. I do believe the car is really central to it, and that government and fleet embracing it first is central to pulling it off. And in the meantime, I think you all helping produce things that'll be good for forklifts and stuff. Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to come together. But putting on my chart, it gets a little bit harder now. I wanted a big component of education to take place for the
That's key.
for the electric car and the hydrogen car. If you'll remember that wonderful campaign that they did with Jade Moon and the squiggle bulb here, I think they spent around $3 million on that to encourage everybody to go out and get a CFL bulb.
Yeah.
Well, we all did. We all went out to Costco and we all bought those just because we were told this was a good thing to do. And it was a good thing to do, and it helped a lot. And I think if we had a similar type campaign that said, it's a good thing to do to move toward electric and to hydrogen and to lean out the gasoline. I use that term from aviation. We all leaned back
Right.
once we got altitude. And
Well, there's nothing more useless than fuel in the truck, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when you're flying an airplane, you can't have enough, fuel left in your airplane when you got mission to do.
So Hawaii will be a pioneer in helping reduce the amount of fossil fuel used in the world. And as we move forward, we just have to all kind of stick together. And I think the auto dealers have done that. They don't all have a hydrogen car, but they're all willing to help kind of work to see if it can get adopted. I mean, we had 2 bills this year down there that we had dealer day at the legislature about. One was to take electronic vehicle registration so you could register your car faster using ones and zeros, the electrons. And the other was to help develop the hydrogen fueling station infrastructure. I mean, only one of the dealers out of the 30 had that vehicle available, and yet all 29 said, how can we help? And we'll be down there to help you get that through. That's just wonderful. A great tribute to 30 individuals.
And it's hard to get people's head around it, but people ask me all the time, well, why is the hydrogen infrastructure not here? Why is, what's taking so long? Why is it so hard to do? And I point out that at my station at Hickam, I don't have to go to a refinery. I don't have to go drill for anything. I don't have to do anything except take some water and take some electricity. And inside the confines of an area that's no bigger than Aloha Gas Express or 7-Eleven or Tesoro or anybody, and where they dispense the fuel, I am making it, I am storing it, I'm compressing it, I'm dispensing it in the car. The whole process, from cradle to grave, I'm doing in the footprint of a station that's this regular
That's
gas
amazing.
station.
I've never heard it
And
expressed like that.
that concept is still foreign to people. But when you look at what we're doing right now with gasoline, we're drilling oil for oil in the Arctic or in Alaska or in the Gulf. We're shipping it in big ships. We're putting it in big pipelines. We're running it through a refinery. We're refining it down to gas, and we're putting it in cars. And I need to get people to understand that we need to not only get rid of the fossil fuel piece because it's too cumbersome and too expensive, but we've already invested so much in that infrastructure, it's hard to pull people away from it. Even though I can give a case, a model for them, doesn't this make sense? Doesn't this look much more, elegant? Isn't this a cleaner, better solution for Hawaii economically? We don't have to reach out and buy fuel from somebody. We make it out of sunshine and water. Doesn't this make sense? And they all go, yes. But then they go, but we already have all this gas stations and refineries and we got all this. It's hard to pull them away. And so it's just going to take time. I think the one thing that I'm trying to really tell people is we're going to make it go faster than anybody else and anybody expects. But that doesn't mean tomorrow. It's going to be here. And it's going to, I'm willing to bet, like you said, a shaved head, that your chart is going to be really close to right on the money, because it's going to start happening. And the first car is here. Like you said, we see the Mirai. I'm willing to bet that Hyundai would love to have some cars here too. We'll get them here and we'll start building this infrastructure and it'll start going. And the help from the auto dealers, the help from the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, the help from DOT and DBED to get all this stuff happening. I was really happy at our last working group. I saw somebody from one of the tour bus companies talking to Hawaii Gas. And at first I thought, oh, that's kind of nice. They're talking together. But it was really cool because I kind of injected myself in their conversation, the butt in that I am. They were talking about, well, if I buy these buses and there's 2-year lead time on the buses, will your stations be up and running to give me hydrogen by this time? I mean, I'm like jazzed because I'm like, I've got Hawaii Gas who's actually thinking about really getting back into this game like they were several years ago.
5 years
and being part of this infrastructure. And they're talking to a guy who understands that hydrogen buses give you air conditioning when you're not moving. And hydrogen buses are quiet. And hydrogen buses are good. And hydrogen buses can last a long time and less brake jobs and all the other good stuff. And he's willing to make an investment in the tourist industry in Hawaii to showcase hydrogen in his bus company. We're not talking 5 buses, we're talking 120 buses. Now that's a market. And when he's sitting there saying, how many thousands of gallons of fuel a month do you use to Hawaii Gas, I'm a happy camper. So we're gonna try and put all these pieces together, and we're gonna try and have the auto dealer piece, and the tour bus company piece, and the agriculture piece, and the banking piece, and we're gonna get that duck, and we're gonna have the pipper right out in front of them, and get all this stuff to come together. And I'm looking at your chart, and I'm saying, end of 2017, 2018, by 2020, I'm looking at, this is a done deal. And it's gonna be so pervasive that people will go, well, of course we're driving hydrogen vehicles, why not?
I got to point out, though, that when I did the graph, it was based on what was needed to fulfill the goals of the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, which may have been tenfold too high. I mean, they had said that 400,000 vehicles, electric hydrogen, would be on the roadways by the end of 2030. That may be closer to 40,000. I mean, because the numbers is 40%, that just manufacturing, I don't even know if they can have all that. So that has to be throttled down a little bit. But even with 40,000, that would be a huge improvement in eventually teaching the duck to fly, it's called, where you could actually plug back in some of these vehicles into the grid and actually lower the amount of oil that's used through the burners. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure saying that everybody's certainly committed to making it happen.
So I look at your chart, and I think back on a couple of discussions we've had over the last couple of weeks in some forums, like the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. I'm sitting around the transportation table, and we're talking about a goal. The state just set up the 100% by 2045 for the grid, and we're sitting around the table at the Energy Policy Forum going, so what's the goal for transportation? And we're coming up with, we got to take this into account and that into account. I'm going, you're overthinking this thing. So, if you're going to, remember what TLAR is? that looks about right?
No, I
It's a
hadn't heard
military
that.
term?
No,
I
no,
figure
no.
the Navy
That
must
would-
use something
Navy
else.
must not have used that.
So in the Air Force, we call it TLAR. That looks about right. You need to look at your chart, and so if you were a TLAR guy, and I'm saying I'm TLARing 20% by 2020, does that make sense to you? I mean, is that like realistic? Is that even close to the ballpark?
No.
Okay, so what's the number, what's the bottom end number there by 2020? What, if I wanted to say, hey, look, let's just take Dave's chart and let's call that the goal.
Well, so you're talking hydrogen or electric, or just,
Maybe both.
okay, both. So it would, we think possibly 2,000 cars coming online would be double what we're doing right now. So that'd be 10,000 more cars added to the 4,000 we have now, it'd be 14,000. But that would be an awful lot of cars. You'd have to double the uptake rate, possible with a giant education campaign. I go back to that $3 million, the screw in the electric bulb campaign. If you told people the value of teaching the duck to fly, of moving toward electric and hydrogen, I think there'd be a lot more embrace.
Okay.
But we'll do it at the auto show, certainly. We'll have displays like that. I'll write a poem or two, and we'll do the best we can without that massive umbrella of communication. But that massive umbrella, based around something that would happen in 2016 here with the World Conservation Congress. I mean, it's all there. All the pieces are there to make this gigantic thing happen. But that isn't happening at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, the pieces are there, but
Okay,
we don't see them glued
let's
together.
do something that I know you don't like to do, which is assume something, because I don't like to assume anything either, but let's look at your chart, and let's say if that 2016 Conservation Congress happens, we start moving, and we move the direction that is a positive direction. What's a good target for 2020? Let's pick 2020 as the mark on the wall, and say, what's realistic for plug-in electric and hydrogen fuel cell cars in 2020? And I'm not gonna make you shave your head if you're wrong, because I'm not looking for a bet here. But I'm looking for that TLAR. I'm looking for, that
Well-
looks about right for 2020, and say, is that a good goal to set?
Well, it would be wildly positive if you had 14,000 cars by then, hydrogen and electric. And I don't know that you could, again, because I don't see people stepping forward with the World Conservation Congress theme. I don't see people stepping forward with the $3 million necessary for the education of the public campaign. We're not a ZEV state, so we have to fight this as hard as we can to get the vehicles. It would be very optimistic to think that we would double our current uptake of electric and electric vehicles, which are roughly about 1,000 now a year.
Okay.
But
So-
that's 2%. To take it up to 4% would be a lot.
So I go back to all the discussions we had, which included a whole lot of stuff, but none of it talked about, can we actually make that many cars and do it?
We
And that's
can. We can make that many cars.
So-
We
So
can
if
get
I
that many
said
cars.
14,000 electric cars, including hydrogen, by 2020 is doable? Is that realistic?
That is realistic. It takes a big education of the public campaign that's not put into place yet.
Okay, well, now we got some stuff to work on.
Sure.
So now I've just coerced my good friend out of a number that I know he'll be happy to make true with us and
Sure.
help work with us. And we've hit our end of our time, actually,
What a
already, Dave.
joy.
And we got a whole lot more to talk about. I think next time we'll talk about some legislation, we'll talk about policy things, we'll talk about that education piece, because all of it's important. But I'm looking for 14,000 plug-in and hydrogen vehicles by 2020. And Governor Ige, that's your number. Okay, I work for you, that's your number. Let's go with it and start making it happen, and make the education stuff happen, and make the Conservation Congress stuff happen. So until next week, Friday, thanks Dave for being here, and we'll see you next week on Stand the Energy Man.